call this meeting to order on August 31st, 2021. We will have our Pledge of Allegiance by Senior Legal Analyst Michael Walker and the invocation by Richard Roca, Chaplain. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chaplain Roca. I guess I have to stand in for the chaplain today. Let us bow. Let us bow our heads. Father, we thank you for another opportunity to come together. We thank you for our police department, our chief, our mayor, this board of police commissioners, and all of the concerned citizens and police of this city. We ask for your divine guidance, your divine direction during this meeting today. We thank you for all that you have done thus far, and we thank you for the victory in advance. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. We will move the presentation for Nathan Garrett to our next meeting in September. And our city council presentation designee, presentation will be made by Councilwoman Heather Hall.
Good morning, President Tolbert.
Morning.
Commissioners, Mayor Lucas, welcome. Commissioner Kramer, we're so happy to have you as a Board of Police Commissioner. Police Command staff, thank you so much for letting me have a moment to address you. So today I come before you for a couple of updates on things we're doing, and then also to let you know something that's coming before you here pretty soon. The first one is a couple of months ago, Brad Dykler came before you in this body, as well as I believe Brad Lemon, and they came before you to talk about the sensory packs that you all initiated to put into your police cars so that when they come upon a family with special needs family members, they're better equipped to address the needs of our citizens. And that was such a great program when we launched it here in this body. Something really exciting happened. Now we have them in Blue Springs, and we have them in the Johnson County, Kansas Sheriff's Office. We have them in the Platte County Sheriff's Office. We have them in the Clay County Sheriff's Department. We have them in Independence. We have them in Parkville. People are calling us wanting to donate money to purchase more from this organization so that more cities can be like Kansas City and support special needs families in our community. So I want to thank you for taking the lead on this and being excited about it. The department, that was a huge effort, and it's not gone unnoticed, and that is super exciting. So to kind of take a step further on that, we have another police officer at the department. Mr. Canovi has worked with an organization called Summit Future Foundation, and they are now going to organize an event on September 25 at 1 o'clock at the Police Academy. You'll all be invited to it. You don't need to write all this down. And what we're going to do at that event, it's going to be a personal safety ID event where families can come for free and get an ID tag with only the data that they want to put on it so that their child of any range of special needs they might have can have an ID that then you can just take your phone and take your camera like a QR reader, and you can connect and say, okay, this is Heather Hall. She has high functioning autism. She's nonverbal, whatever it is about her. And then that way the police officer and their caregiver can have a conversation and know where to go versus having an altercation that may not be pleasant. So this is a really exciting opportunity. It's something not only that the Kansas City Police Department is supportive of, but the people who are paying for this are the City of Kansas City, our city manager. He has said this is critically important to him as a first responding city. We want to make sure we're helpful. So the city is doing it through our health department, the fire department, and the police department are all working together for this event to really help do this. And the exciting part while this is great for the youth with special needs, what this is going to do, and I think for the officers it's going to be a huge help, is we're going to then transition it into helping our elder population. There are so many people that the police department are looking for all the time on Amber Alerts, on Silver Alerts, where we have lost people with dementia or Alzheimer's that are desperately needing to be searched for. This same protocol can be used for them. So this is not just a one-off, it's just a let's start here and move on to the next thing so we can help all the populations in Kansas City that might need their help. So this is a great thing, and this was done by one of your officers, not by me. They thought this was important, and they reached out to this organization, and I think that's showing great community support and just evolving policing in different ways that maybe, not that we didn't want to do them, but just we maybe didn't have the manpower or the time to do it, and now we do. So this is exciting. So I wanted to start by telling you those two things. I too have a proclamation honoring Nathan Garrett and his service to this board and to the city, so I will wait, if it's okay, till the September meeting. And then I have in the chambers with me today Councilwoman Teresa Lohr. She and I are here today because we introduced as a first reading last week in the City Council ordinance number 210761, and this ordinance appropriates $2,172,000 from the unappropriated fund balance of the general fund to be placed in the budget of the Kansas City Police Department for the purpose of holding an up to 104-person academy class for the 2021-22 fiscal year. The goal of this ordinance is that our hope, number one, is that it gets passed out of committee, and it's been sent, the mayor sent it to legal review. On that committee, you have Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Kevin McManus, you have Andrea Boo, and you have Lee Barnes and myself. So there's 4 people. We need 3 positive votes. We're hopeful that those 3 of us will vote yes to get it out of committee, to get it to the full council, because we firmly believe Councilwoman Lohr, myself, Councilman Fowler, and O'Neill have all co-sponsored this. We have several other council colleagues who've agreed to vote for it. The goal is to get more people on the street to serve better the people of Kansas City, and we believe we need more police officers. We also know that it takes 9 months-ish or more for them to become productive police officers on the street, and we believe that by getting this out of committee as fast as possible, this money can be moved over to that. Now, just because it says the unappropriated fund balance, the goal of this, though, is for it to come out of the American Recovery Funds, and the text of this language of this ordinance does read that. Because it is a one-time expense, it's allowable by the American Recovery Plan dollars, and that's why we hope to do that and not just take it out of the general fund. So I will stand for any questions. Otherwise, that's all I have to report, and I want to thank you so much.
I thank you very much for supporting that, and Councilperson Lohr as well. And the mayor told me it's already on the agenda for 3 weeks from now for the city council to hear it. So I'm delighted that he's supportive and that we should get 104 officers just as fast as possible. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for your support, and I sure do hope that we get it out of committee so it can be heard in 3 weeks. That's my goal. And so it has to go to committee first.
It's on the agenda for committee, and then the full committee would have to vote to put it in the full council.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought he said it was on the city council agenda.
I
hope that it passes the committee and then gets on the city council agenda.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
appreciate your support and the mayor's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. That's mine as well. Yes,
So
sir.
Councilwoman Hall, how are they getting the word out about the ID for the special needs program?
Well, we have sent it out through all of our, we have a MailChimp database at the city that we have been putting it out. We have given it to the police and the fire for them to put out through their media outlets. We just sent that out to them. We have several media outlets who've agreed to come, and then we're sending it to all of our other special needs community organizations. So anyone who's in that space, this is not just a Summit Future Foundation program. While they're the ones that are starting it, we're sending it to all of our organizations, Easter Seals, Ability Kansas City, all the different groups. We're giving it to everyone so that everybody has the opportunity to invite them to come to the Academy, again, for this free event. And we have lots of parking, so it will be safe an environment for people to come and do this with their families. If you have suggestions, though, please tell me if there's a target audience I should be sending it to, and I'm not. I would love for that input.
I think that some kind of way it should go through the school system as well.
Absolutely. Yep. We've got that. We'll add it to the school district list that we have. And we have all the 13 school districts on our list.
And add charter schools
And the
as well.
charter schools, I would never forget that. You and my dad would kill me if I forgot that one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions?
You know, well, Councilwoman Hall and Laura here, one issue that hasn't come up for a while, it's somewhat stalled, but I think it's still worthy of conversation in a future meeting, related to airport policing, the costs that Kcpd sustains there now, and efforts that we've had in the past to try to, I think, address both good and strong and efficient policing, better collaboration with the department, among other things. The last conversation started in the spring of 2020. It wasn't the best time for that conversation, I guess, but it would be worthwhile for us to revisit that issue as well. And I know that both council members, Laura and Hall, were central to that discussion, and I would hope that we're able to get that started again. I know the department has been very helpful in providing necessary information. I think the last I heard, there was a meeting with the city manager and the chief of police and others on it, but I'd be interested in seeing legislation of that effect again, too, in the future.
Very good. I understand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman Hall. We have some guest presentations today. Clay County Prosecutor Daniel White, and then he will be followed by Platte County Prosecutor Eric Zellin.
Commissioners, it's a great pleasure to be here. I am Platte County Prosecuting Attorney.
Counselor, I want to make sure, only briefly, I was wrong. I thought we let the Jackson County Prosecutor sit down and have a full-time presentation, and so if you want to be more comfortable, feel free. I want to make sure we gave you the same opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and Commissioners, it's a great pleasure for Mr. White and I to be here. I'm Eric Zond. I've had the great privilege and solemn responsibility to serve as the Platte County Prosecuting Attorney for the last 18 years. Dan's been the elected prosecutor in Clay County for about 11 years, and if you add his time as assistant prosecutor, he's been there for close to 30 years as prosecutor in Clay County. So we're gonna tag team this presentation together, and if we can pull it up here. Thank you very much. So what we want to talk about today is violence and drugs in Kansas City. And we all know that data is important. Data-driven solutions are absolutely crucial. There's been a lot of talk about that. But there's one important thing to always remember about data, and that is data can only answer the question that we ask. And so a month ago, we spent a lot of time talking about a very important question, and that is, are drug crimes associated with violence? And that is undoubtedly a very important question to address, because it informs how we address those cases, and Dan and I will talk a little bit more about that later. It informs how we dispose of those cases. It informs what we do in the future with folks who have drug issues. So that's a vital question. There's no question about it. And you all talked a lot about that and heard a good presentation from the Jackson County Prosecuting Attorney about that question, and heard a lot of data that addresses that question. Dan and I are going to submit to you, though, that there's actually a better question to ask when we're looking at the violence problem in Kansas City. As opposed to, are drugs associated with violence? Perhaps the better question to ask is, are violent crimes associated with drugs? So we want to spend some time talking about that, and I'll start by giving you a little bit of data from Platte County about that. In Platte County, nearly 90% of our non-vehicular homicides over the last 5 years were associated with drugs. And when I say associated, that means either they were committed by somebody who was on drugs at the time, they were committed during a drug deal, or those crimes were committed by somebody who had a prior history of drug offenses. And then if we drop down and look at other violent I just looked at the last year and charges from the Kansas City Police Department in Platte County. 75% of our non-domestic assault cases, our robbery cases, and our weapons cases were again associated with drugs in that same way, either being committed by somebody who was on drugs at the time, during a drug deal, or somebody who had a prior history of drug issues.
Good morning. My name is Daniel White, Clay County Prosecuting Attorney. I appreciate your time today. And what I want to talk about a little bit is how police respond. And I guess a better way to say it is, I have seen very few cases where the call to law enforcement was somebody is on drugs, right? Somebody's behaving poorly, somebody's behaving strangely, somebody is committed some sort of offense in a vehicle and getting stopped, and drug cases evolve from that. But where does a drug case actually come from? It comes from addiction. It comes from addiction. And people that are addicted to drugs generally can't hold a job, and they're still going to get drugs somewhere, so they resort to criminal behavior. And sometimes that criminal behavior is not violent. Many times it's not violent. But I'll tell you this, the person that had their catalytic converter cut off, they feel like that's the most important case the prosecutor's office has in their mind. That person whose door got kicked in while they were out working that day, that person feels like that's the most important case that I have in my office. Eric has in his office, or Jean has in her office. Right? When somebody steals the Christmas present for the grandson or for the daughter, or the birthday present off your porch while you're out working, that case is important to you. That case is important to you, and that case is being driven by an addiction to drugs. All right? Now, the law enforcement in this country is very reactive. We're not very good at proactive. It's not the way the system was designed. If you want to really do something about crime and drug addiction, work on prevention. Get in the schools and work on prevention. Because you know what rate of recidivism successful prevention has? 0. Successful prevention, there is no rate of recidivism. So over the last 10 or 15 years, law enforcement in the courts, prosecutors have done a really good job with courts that allow some sort of treatment. And that's where, not the Board of Police Commissioners, not the Kansas City Police Department, and not the prosecutors, but society. Society needs to get involved in prevention, and you're going to have less addiction, and you're going to have less crime. So, for me, I'm firmly convinced prevention is the key. All right, so in 2019, and I use 2019 because 2020 and 2021, I think we're all familiar with what that's done, especially to law enforcement, but the criminal justice system. We are bogged down. But in 2019, 734 drug possession cases were filed by the prosecutor's office. Now, that's not Kansas City. That is all of Clay County. 81%. So there's 217 remaining out of the 734. Out of the number that's left, 81% of those cases have been resolved by a plea of guilty. All right? So we are having success with drug cases in Clay County. 81% of those. And just so you know, roughly 81% of those were Caucasian individuals in Clay County that pled guilty to those drug cases. So I've talked a little bit about this already. And sometimes people will say drugs, possession cases are a victimless crime. Well, I assure you, they are not. And for some of the reasons I've already stated, with the thefts, the burglaries, pharmacy robberies, a pharmacy robbery, they don't happen too often, but enough that we see them occasionally. And that is generally someone who's gotten themselves addicted to narcotics and the prescriptions have run out. And they're not having success on the street filling that craving that drives them to get a gun and go into a pharmacy and point it at someone and say, give me the narcotics. That is addiction-fueled behavior, and that's what we need to focus on. Children are neglected by drug abusers. Children aren't fed because somebody would rather get high than take care of the child they brought into the world. Hard to keep a job when you're high on meth. So when you can't keep your job and you can't take care of your family and you neglect kids, that is a direct result of a drug problem that sometimes get addressed by filing a possession case, and the criminal justice system clumsily shows some progress. And I say clumsily because it's not designed to do what we're kind of doing. And that's why my big push today is prevention. Find a way for successful prevention, and you will go a long ways to helping the community we all share together.
So I agree 100% with what Dan has said, and you've seen some statistics about how drug cases can be successfully prosecuted. Our statistics about our success rate in prosecuting drug cases in Platte County are very similar to what Dan described in Clay County. I want to talk about just a couple of case studies too. While the statistics are very important, what we do as prosecutors and what police do is deal with individual cases. Each case comes on its own merit, and you deal with those individual cases. And I want to use a couple of anecdotes to talk about the drug and violence problem in Kansas City. So the first case study is one involving Jordan Wilson. Jordan Wilson shot and killed another man, Devon Rivera Wright, during a drug deal for just 2 ounces of marijuana, not much marijuana at all, back in 2017. Now, he's currently serving 18 years in prison for that crime, but the important thing that I want you to concentrate on is that in 2014, long before that crime, he was actually charged in Platte County with possession of marijuana. Now, at the time, Platte County did not yet have a drug treatment court. We had, at that time, a DWI treatment court. We now have a drug treatment court. We have a mental health treatment court, and we have a veterans court. I'm really proud that we've got all 4 of those treatment courts in Platte County. But in 2014, we did not have a drug treatment court. And the question that frankly lingers in my mind about this case and the tragic death of Devon Rivera Wright is, had we had our drug treatment court, Mr. Wilson would have been a great candidate for it, and would things have turned out differently had we got him the treatment he needed in 2014? Would Devon Rivera Wright be alive today because we changed Mr. Wilson's life? We'll never know the outcome of that story. I will tell you about another story that we do know the outcome of. This involves somebody, I'm going to keep this person's name confidential. The initials are MR. MR was spotted at one point by a passerby, passed out in a car. When police pulled up, MR had a heroin needle in the arm and was charged in Platte County with felony possession of narcotics. That case was dismissed when MR successfully graduated from our drug treatment court, which is now in place. And here's the great success story of that case. MR, who was terribly addicted to drugs, who would tell you that life was spiraling downward, is now a behavioral specialist in a public school district here in the Kansas City Metro, studying to become a special education teacher. MR, every year since this arrest, has taken lunch to the very police officers who arrested MR as a thank you for changing MR's life. When I talked to MR, she said, your drug treatment court changed my life. And I said, no, you changed your life, but I'm pleased that treatment helped, and treatment does work. So let me tell you what we're trying to do. This is not about putting first-time, nonviolent drug offenders in prison. That's not what it's about. It's about intervening in their lives so we can stop the cycle of violence in our city. And so the reality of it is, and I think this gets lost lots of times in the popular press, the reality of it is first-time, nonviolent drug offenders do not go to prison. In Missouri, only 1% of our prison population of 27,000 people are first-time nonviolent offenders. 1% are first-time nonviolent offenders. Said another way, 99% of the people in Missouri prisons are exactly the people I think most of us believe we build prisons for. They're violent or sexual offenders. They're repeat offenders, what I call career criminals, people who just will not stop committing crimes, whether they're violent or nonviolent, people who are just going to commit crimes unless they're incarcerated, or they're people who a judge gave probation to originally, and after usually repeated violations of the judge's order, saying this is what you need to do to stay in public, and so I don't have to send you to prison. People who just will not do what the judge tells them to do ultimately will get revoked and sent to prison. And we have to have that backstop for people. We want them to be in the community, but some people just refuse to do what a judge tells them to do while they're on probation.
So following up a little bit in regards to this, non-violent drug offenders, all right, some of them, by way of the criminal justice system, get the message. Some of them get the message, they change. Some of them have to go through a program, and they learn, and they change. Others are never going to learn. They're going to continue to commit offenses so they can get high, and those are the people that are going to end up in prison. We are not going to fix drug addiction by not prosecuting those cases. It's just not going to happen. It just fosters and continues the cycle. That cycle is going to continue with certain people anyway, but other ones, that cycle is avoided. It is stopped. They become productive members of society. A lot of times, we'll use diversion cases, and you complete a program or you complete a period of diversion, Clay County, you don't have a criminal record. You may have an arrest on your record, but you could get removed, but you don't have a criminal record that's going to prevent you possibly from getting a job somewhere. So there are things in place that allow the criminal justice system to do the best it can with a big problem, a societal problem.
So here then is back to sort of a philosophical point about what we do as police and prosecutors. I believe that the American system of government is the greatest system of government in the world. It's not perfect, but it's as good as anybody has figured out. And part of that system is the separation of powers. We have an executive branch that enforces laws. We have a legislative branch that makes those laws. And then we have a judicial branch that interprets those laws. And it's really important that those branches do what they're supposed to do and don't try to do what the other branches are supposed to do in our system. And here's the key to that for this discussion. Police and prosecutors are not legislators. We elect our legislators to go make laws. Police and prosecutors are supposed to enforce those laws on an individual basis, and they ought to use their discretion in individual cases. I teach that to my assistant prosecutors every day. Your job is to take every case that comes and judge it on its individual merits, treating similar cases similarly and different cases differently. And so that's what police do, and that's what prosecutors do on a daily basis. But what police and prosecutors shouldn't do is refuse, in my opinion, to enforce entire classes of crimes. In my opinion, that impinges upon the duties of the legislature under our system. I took an oath to uphold the laws and Constitution of the United States when I was sworn in as prosecuting attorney. And that oath didn't have exceptions for laws that I maybe didn't agree with, or laws that I found difficult or inconvenient to enforce. My oath requires me to enforce all the laws, and police take the same oath. So we have to leave it to our legislators to decide what the public policy of this state is, or our voters directly. For example, as we all know, recently voters in the state of Missouri created an exception for the medical use of marijuana. And so those laws have changed. And we enforce those laws now, as written in the state of Missouri. But for non-medical purposes, marijuana and other narcotics remain illegal. And my oath, I believe, requires me to prosecute those cases.
I couldn't have said any better.
So in my opinion, and Dan's opinion too, and this is the reason we wrote the letter that we wrote to the police board that we're here today to talk a little bit more about, and we're happy to answer questions that you might have when we're done here in a second. In my opinion, drug cases need to be consistently referred in Platte County, in Clay County, because I believe it will help us prevent violence, not merely respond to violence after it happens. As Dan has said, the criminal justice system is primarily set up to be reactive in nature. We respond to things. But to the extent we can respond early on, before crimes spiral into violence, we're going to be better off. And that's why, the criminal justice system really is the last stop on the road once other social institutions have failed. And so we can't do everything. But what we can do is try to do what we can on the front end before crimes become violent crimes. What I would hate to see in this city is that the only thing we do is respond to homicide scenes, that we ignore other crimes, because I can tell you from my experience over the last 18 years, Dan, I think, would agree with his nearly 30 years of experience, if you ignore the small problems, they merely become bigger and bigger problems. And in Kansas City, that means violent problems, that means shootings, that means homicides, that means needless deaths in the city of Kansas City. It's a huge problem. It's a huge, huge problem. But I think it's not an either-or choice. It's not, do we prosecute drug cases and investigate drug cases, or do we prosecute homicides and investigate homicides? It's got to be a both-and proposition. We've got to do both. Dealing with drug cases will help us deal with our homicide cases.
Doing away with drug cases is not, in my opinion, going to do away with the other crimes associated with drug addiction. Those cases aren't going away. And those are the cases that are important to the people that we all represent, the people of this city. I am a resident of this city. I was actually born in this city. I actually went to Thatcher Elementary School on Independence Avenue. I spent some time up off of St. John. That was my neighborhood. I spent summers in the Kansas City Museum crawling through the igloo. For people that are probably over 40 know what that is. So I've lived here. I've been here. I'm not just a prosecutor from Liberty. I'm a Kansas City, and I have been for most of my life. And if everything works out, this is probably where I'm going to die. I just hope not anytime soon. But those cases that are drug-related cases are the most important cases to people in the community. In 2019, we recovered $358,000 for victims of crime for restitution to help make the rights or the wrongs right in being victims of those crimes, right? And sometimes the $500 check that went out, it meant more than the $10,000 check that went out to help somebody try to fix what the wrong occurred because somebody else had a drug addiction and wanted to get high.
So with that, we're happy to answer any questions that the board may have. And And thank you so much for the invitation to be here and address these really important issues.
Thank you. Great presentation. Any questions or comments from board members?
I have a few. Thank you, first of all. Very outstanding presentation. And I will also note that you all have always been very accessible, I know, to me in this office, and I appreciate it. I will note I have a chance to meet with you all and the Jackson County Prosecutor, I believe, coming up in a few weeks. I believe the Cass County Prosecutor might join us, too. So we get a chance to have this conversation. Prosecutor Zahn, you were the head of the Missouri Association of Prosecuting Attorneys. This is the only way I'll start asking you questions outside of your jurisdiction.
Sure.
Because I'm trying to understand some of the objective numbers that seem to have a disconnect. I pulled up the Jackson County Prosecutor's letter, and she contends, and I know you're not representing her, but she contends 70% of their drug charges have no connection to violence. In Platte County, the number was 91% having a connection to violence. Where do you think you all might be reading that differently?
So that's a really great question, Mr. Mayor, and I'm glad you asked it because this is the important difference. So the question that I asked is, are violent crimes related to drugs? And we know that in Platte County, I only ran the Platte County numbers because those are the numbers that I have access to. We know that about 90% of our homicides and 75% of our other non-domestic violence cases are violent cases that have some sort of connection to drugs. Now, I will tell you, our data is very similar to Jackson County's data if you ask a different question. And that question is, are drug crimes associated with violence? Right? Understand the two different questions. And that's why I say the data can only guide us based on the question we ask. Those are both really important questions. Those are both really important questions. I would submit that if what we want to talk about is violence in our city, if that's our greatest concern, the better question to ask is, are violent crimes associated with drugs? I know those numbers from Platte County. I'm sure Gene Peters-Baker could get them for you for Jackson County as well. It's a different question, and that's why the answers are different, whereas I really think Jackson County's, Clay County's, Platte County's numbers would be the same depending on the question that we ask.
Understood. There was another representation, and we had a presentation last month of which you might be aware on some of these issues. The Jackson County Prosecutor contended that the genesis of this review in her office related to actually a jail space issue in the Jackson County Jail itself. You have given us numbers for the Missouri penal system, I believe that 1% of first-time drug offenders. In Clay and Platte County, are you seeing in your county jail numbers, I take it Jackson County Prosecutor would contend there are too many drug convictions, those who've been adjudicated as guilty sitting in the Jackson County Jail, such that she views she can't have those beds for violent offenders, something of the sort. Do you see something similar? Or would you contend that that isn't quite the same concern?
We've not had a huge issue in Platte County with our jail space being inordinately used by nonviolent offenders of any type, including drug offenders. Those folks usually are given a bond that they can make, and bond outs oftentimes are released without any bond, with some non-monetary bond conditions, but oftentimes no monetary bond conditions.
Yeah, so I think it's important to distinguish when we're talking about the jail population in a specific county is only going to be related to misdemeanor convictions where somebody has received a misdemeanor sentence or is a pre-trial detention. That person cannot make a bond set by a judge, so they're awaiting trial. So that's going to be your jail population. And to be honest with you, COVID has made such a mess of county jails that it's hard to look right now and give you an accurate number, except to tell you that there are probably 400% or 500% more people out on bond in Clay County right now than are in the jail on nonviolent offenses, and who have failed to appear multiple times. And it's going to be a big mess to clean that up once we get through this pandemic, if we ever do.
Absolutely. Just two more things. There was also some discussion on the Jackson County prosecutors' purported inability to get convictions on drug charges, and that being in some way the basis for her concern. To an extent, Prosecutor Zahn's first discussion answers some of that question, which is, what are you looking at, drug crimes or violent crimes? But do you find, if you have a standalone drug charge, some greater difficulty in being able to secure convictions on those, or has that not been a concern in your jurisdictions?
So the number I gave you earlier, the 2019 number, all right, and it's difficult to put them categorize them into years, because just because a case gets filed in 2019 doesn't mean that case is getting disposed of in 2019. So that's why I gave you the number I gave you. And that number, that 81%, those are pleas. Those are guilty pleas. There wasn't one jury trial in there, right? Those are guilty pleas, people pleading guilty at the felony or misdemeanor level to a drug offense, 81%. Currently, 2019, 81%.
We see similar statistics in Platte County. The overwhelming number of drug cases that we charge wind up in a guilty plea. Many of those ending up in our treatment courts. And that's one of the important things to remember, is that referrals to our office drive our numbers in treatment court. We can't refer people to our drug treatment court or our mental health wellness court without having the case in our office. So I worry that if Kansas City were to stop investigating and referring drug cases to our office, our drug treatment court would go away. And that, I think, would be a terrible disservice, because you saw the one success story of MR, and it's repeated dozens and dozens and hundreds of times in Platte County and Clay County, and I believe Jackson County as well, where people benefit tremendously from the treatment provided from those courts. And so it's important that these cases get referred to our offices so that we can help people who want the help. Not everybody is, as Dan points out, not everybody's going to avail themselves of that help, but there certainly are a lot of people who do.
Understood.
If I could follow up just real quick, Mayor, to your question, because I feel like about 5 or 6 years ago, the Board of Police Commissioners was dealing with an issue related to drug cases and the huge backlog of drug cases at the Kansas City Crime Lab, and how I think Clay County's number was 1,200 or 1,300 that were backlogged. The Board of Police Commissioners allocated money to get TrueNarcs, spent a substantial amount of money getting TrueNarc, which is a small handheld device that can check and give you the molecular structure of a drug and tell you whether it's drugs or not, in an attempt to get those drug cases backlogged down. And that's been successful, very successful. So I just think that is another thing that's happened in the past that's important to point to, that helped stop drug cases. Because the reality was, if the crime lab was 9 months behind, so the case gets submitted after the lab does the test and we know that it's drugs, and then a warrant goes out for that person. So those drug cases happen much quicker now. The distance between arrest and charge has been greatly reduced by the use of those devices. So I think that was an important step in speeding up the process.
Understood. I want to say thank you both. A very interesting conversation, very helpful information. Prosecutor White, I particularly appreciate your comments on prevention and noting that our recidivism rate with successful prevention is 0. And I think that's something key for us. I will note, and you all are probably aware, this department has been doing, I think, strong work lately in prevention and intervention and enforcement programs with the Department of Justice, with your offices, and many others, to make sure that we continue to look to that as well. So I thank you all for your time today and look forward to more discussion.
Any other? Thank you. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. A lot to take in, and prevention is what I think all of us need to focus on. Our crime reporting will be done by our command staff today, and Chief is out today, but he's got a lot of capable people here to give us these reports. And so please tell us what tab you're under, because it's kind of all over the place. And so we'll get our reporting on homicides. And that is?
Deputy Chief Maben.
Maben, all right.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
If you refer to the Daily Homicide Analysis Report, also known as the Blue Sheet, you'll observe that to date, we've had 103 homicides in 2021 compared to 133 in 2020 at the same time. This is a 23% year-to-date, 23% decrease year-to-date.
I'm sorry, but I've got to interrupt.
Yes.
I keep hearing on the news that our homicides are up. That's just wrong?
Correct.
Okay. So homicides are down.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
There were 103 homicides at the same time in 2019, so that's the same as where we are now. 91 homicides in 2018 and 101 homicides in 2017.
And you're under what tab, I'm sorry?
Right now, it's the Daily Homicide
Oh,
sheet.
okay, all right.
We've cleared 59 homicides in the current year, and this number includes homicides that occurred in 2021 as well as homicides that occurred in previous years. Now, the non-fatal shooting stats are under tab D in your books. As of August 30th, we had 358 non-fatal shooting victims. In 2020, we had 435 non-fatal shooting victims during the same time period. So we're down 18% compared to last year. In July 2021, we had 71 non-fatal shooting victims compared to 65 in July of the previous year. So July was a tough month for us. That's a 9% increase. But that was the only month so far this year that we've had an increase in the number of non-fatal shootings compared to 2020. If I may direct your attention to the July 2021 non-fatal shooting report, you'll see that of the 71 non-fatal shooting victims in July, 39 were cooperative. That means that 32 victims, or 45%, were initially uncooperative with the police and did not wish to pursue charges against whomever shot them. As with the previous month, black males accounted for the highest number of non-fatal shooting victims with 41, which is 58% of the total number of victims. White males came in second with 18 victims, which is 25%, and black females were third with 9, which is 13% of the total number of non-fatal shooting victims. The age group with the highest number of non-fatal shooting victims was 18 to 24 with 34%. 25 to 34 was second with 25%, and 45 and over was a third with 18% of non-fatal shooting victims falling into that age group. There are 32 suspects listed. At the time of this report, 17 were known or identified. 27 of the 32 suspects were described as black males. This is 84% of the total number of suspects. 3 suspects were described as white males, which is 9% of the total. And there was also 1 black female suspect and 1 white female suspect. It should be noted that we only list the age of suspects in the cases where suspect is known or identified. So you can see that column over there.
I'm going to interrupt again. In the instances that you said people didn't want to cooperate, didn't want to identify, what do we do to try to convince them that we need their help?
I'll do several things. So one, when the officer initially approached them, they'll do the interview, and if the person is uncooperative, if it's a shooting incident, the detectives will go out, re-interview the party, and at that time, they'll try to convince them to cooperate. Oftentimes, we'll have our social services providers reach out. If there's a case of shooting where it might be a potential for retaliatory violence, we'll have our gang intelligence squad or detectives or patrol officers reach back out a third time essentially, and talk to the individual and try to convince them to cooperate, and at the very least, to not try to retaliate. So we take several different avenues of trying to get cooperation.
Thank
And with regard to firearms, KCPD recovered 219 firearms in July of 2021 compared to 210 in July of 2020. The 5-year average for firearms recovered in the month of July is 196. So as you can see, we're taking a lot of guns off the streets. Do you have any questions so far with gun crime related statistics?
Do we have any way of figuring out how they got the guns? I mean, do we know who's selling them to them?
No, anecdotally, we know that, a lot of them are stolen firearms. Some of them are purchased legally. It kind of runs the gamut.
I have one quick question for you. Calls for speculation, so if you were in trial, I would encourage you not to answer the question, but we're not. 2020 is intriguing for me, and I don't know if through you all's research, the Major Cities Chiefs Association that I know Chief Smith participates in, does anybody have an answer for the exceptionally high numbers that we faced in that year? Because perhaps it gives us some guide as to either what is right or wrong. Was it a disregard for law enforcement? Was it everybody's outside and unemployed? Is there anything that leads to why we were seeing such high numbers then that we might be able to incorporate into how we address these in the future?
Right, it calls for speculation, but just from reading other reports and news media outlets, it wasn't specific to Kansas City. Throughout the nation, homicides, non-fatal shootings were up almost 30% over the previous year. So whatever is happening is not special to here. But obviously, you had the pandemic, you had civil unrest and some distrust of law enforcement after that. You also had a period of reduced, now this might be speculation here, reduced enforcement, perceived or otherwise. And so I think people took advantage of that, or maybe they didn't trust the system. You had economic hardship faced because of the pandemic. So I think it was a perfect storm, which resulted in the numbers that we saw.
And then are you seeing, in some ways to Prosecutor White's discussion, more offenders who traditionally would have found themselves incarcerated in 2019 or previous that were able to stay on the streets longer? The prosecutor mentioned folks that did not appear, and 4 different times did not appear, that perhaps traditionally would have spent time in the Clay County Jail but are not. Is that something that that your officers were seeing fairly consistently in
Absolutely.
2020?
And it goes to, you'll have a shooting suspect who's arrested, and because of bed space, they'll be out on pre-trial release, re-victimizing people. You have witnesses and victims who are at risk because you have the suspect, the perpetrator, out on the streets. So that is definitely a factor that contributes to the ongoing violence.
One other question relating to your statistics, these statistics, they're not yours. There's this inconsistent number in some ways month to month in our non-fatal shootings. And theories that I've heard in my lifetime are warm weather leads to certain things or it doesn't and all of that. But it is odd to me that from June, we see a 71% or a significant reduction, I believe, in non-fatal shootings. But in July, we see an increase in non-fatal shootings year to year. I know much of it may just be happenstance and the numbers aren't that large, so extrapolating from them is a challenge. But is there any type of things that we see that lead to those types of changes even month to month, and how we can measure either success or where more prevention activities should be allocated? Is there something there that you've been able to see that explains these changes?
I agree. You'd have to go back many more years than a 1 year look back, maybe 5, 10 is even better. Typically, we do see increased activity over the summer months, December with people being off work, and then you have the holidays. Sometimes that's a volatile situation, so we'll see spikes there. And you're right, some of it is just dependent on what's going on at the time. If you have, for instance, violent groups who may be feuding, that'll cause the numbers to tick up for that month, and then we can adjust resources and try to attack that problem. But yes, we'd have to spread it out a lot longer to analyze the trends. But that's something that we do all the time when we're deploying resources and trying to look at where and how to focus our efforts.
Yeah, I'll stop here. It's just, it's intriguing because I recognize the 2021 trend going down, but we also see that, at least in this data metrics, the July 2021 number is the second most violent month in our entire matrix. And one wonders perhaps why, and I guess we'll do more research to see it. So thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, Deputy Chief Karen True will provide a report on fentanyl.
I'd like to, I mean, I noticed that, got a report yesterday that homicides nationwide are up, I think it says 16% this year, but in Kansas City, we've had a 22.5% reduction. So I'd like to commend you for that, even though it's obvious that 103 homicides are a horrible statistic, and as the prosecutor said, giant problem for Kansas City. But also, you've had a consistent reduction over the last several years in the reduction of violent crime. So I want to commend you for that, too. I know that just came with a lot of hard work on your guys' part, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to say that, most people kind of like to blame maybe the police department, maybe the police commissioners, maybe the politicians for the problems, the homicide problems and so forth. It's really not us. It's not you. It's the criminals, and that's where we need to lay the blame. So, thank you for what you've accomplished.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners. Karen True, in charge of the Patrol Bureau. I want to talk about fentanyl today. Fentanyl is something that we're seeing not only in Kansas City, but also all throughout the United States.
Where's your report?
It's a PowerPoint.
Not on the book.
Correct.
Sorry.
So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is approximately 50 times more potent than heroin and 100 times more potent than morphine. A kilogram of fentanyl can contain 500,000 potentially lethal doses. Illicit fentanyl, primarily manufactured in foreign labs and smuggled into the United States, is being distributed across the country and sold on the illegal drug market. Producing fentanyl is not an exact science. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal depending on a person's body size, tolerance, and past usage. DEA analysis has found counterfeit pills ranging from 0.02 to 5.1 milligrams, that's more than twice the lethal dose, of fentanyl per tablet. 26% of tablets tested by the DEA contain a lethal amount of fentanyl, enough to kill a person. Drug trafficking organizations typically distribute fentanyl by the kilogram. And the next slide is pictures of pills that are laced with fentanyl, can be, and it is really hard to tell a lot of times between what is real, authentic, and what is fake. So fentanyl is being mixed with other illicit drugs to increase the potency of the drug. So does powders and nasal sprays, and increasingly pressed into pills to make it look like legitimate prescription opioids. So a lot of times, a person who does have a drug problem will seek drugs, on the street, and they think they're buying one thing, but really they're buying a counterfeit pill that is laced with fentanyl. So law enforcement throughout the United States continues to seize record numbers of fentanyl-laced pills, mostly counterfeit to resemble an illicit 30 milligram or M30s, which you see on the screen, oxycodone pill. And just this year, Kcpd drug unit has seized over 50 pounds of fentanyl with a street value of over $3 million. So if you can see, back in 2018, we did not have, and these are all just fentanyl, we didn't have any fentanyl. Going to today with the 57 pounds of fentanyl that we have recovered so far just in this year. And why? Why do they take these? Kind of like what the prosecutors were talking about, sometimes they will get hooked on a prescribed medication that's prescribed for pain or surgery or serious injury. Then when that runs out, a lot of times they still want that high. So fentanyl produces intense short-term high, euphoria, pain relief, some relaxation. But on the other side, it can cause confusion, drowsiness, death, nausea, vomiting, and death. And what will happen a lot of times if a group of people, if they're doing drugs together, a lot of times one of them will not take the pills or do the drugs, and they will have Narcan. So there's a lot of resources in the community where a lot of places will offer free Narcan to save lives to drug addicts, and one person will stay sober, and that way if somebody does accidentally overdose, that friend is there to administer the Narcan.
May I? I just need clarification because I don't know fentanyl use that well. You're saying the users are together and one of them has Narcan?
Sometimes. A lot of times they will do it in groups, and because they know this is a huge issue, so a lot of times they will get together and have, a party, and one person will stay sober with Narcan.
Designated driver.
The preparation for destroying yourself, but anyway, carry on.
Right. And then Missouri drug deaths. So Missouri drug deaths, this is the latest information I could find, is just under 2,000 drug deaths in Missouri as of January 2021. And you can see that it's just been steadily rising. And it's really hard a lot of times how they get this information is they have to look through databases on the coroner's report to find out what the toxology said and what the coroner, how they ruled the death. And then education and community resources. So the DEA, this is from Special Agent in Charge Todd Zimmerman, who is in charge of the DEA office in St. Louis, which covers Kansas City. And Todd Zimmerman used to be an officer on our department here. I worked with him when he was in Center Zone. And he said, fentanyl has caused more deaths and more disruption to families than any other drug in my time with the DEA. People should be aware of how dangerous it is and why the DEA will continue to use every resource available to identify those who are contributing to the crisis. And in April of 2021, they have they're doing a big nationwide push to address the fentanyl issues by addressing the cartels and the people that are bringing the drug into the United States. And then in Missouri, we also have a couple social service organizations where people can go and get help and get, addiction recovery or prevention activities. Here, Tri-County Mental Health in Kansas City, with prevention program that they do. It's high school kids, and they do PSAs, and they work out in the community to try to prevent their peers from being addicted to drugs. And in February of this year, our department put out a news story, which was picked up by the Kansas City Star, talking about the fentanyl deaths that we had seen in the Northland. And we continue to see those. Now, not all the time are we called to those. If it's an ambulance call, a lot of times we're not called. A lot of times it could be a cardiac arrest call, and we're not called there. But we find out later that it is involved with a pill that somebody took, which was potentially laced, we think, with fentanyl.
I don't understand. Is there a prescription for fentanyl?
Well, fentanyl, it is used in the medical community in very, very small amounts, not in the amounts, and that's controlled. So ambulance, they have fentanyl on their ambulances to give to patients, but it is not something that would normally be prescribed by a regular routine family doctor.
So
But-
why would they, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The fentanyl that we're seeing that's causing the overdoses is illegally produced fentanyl that is being brought into this country.
But you said it's being added to pills to
It's
make them
being-
look like something. Why would
Correct.
they do that?
They're doing that so that they get more of a high,
Quicker high.
a quicker high.
So the people who are buying those fake pills know they're buying a pill with fentanyl because they want the quicker high?
Not necessarily. Sometimes they don't know what they're buying. They don't know if it's real or if it's fake, if it's laced with fentanyl or if it's not. So now they do have test strips that a person could buy to test a pill to see if it is laced with fentanyl before they take it. And that's just starting. I don't know how widely it is available in Kansas City, but that's one way that a person could check to see something. And this is street drugs. We're talking about street level drugs, not something that you would get from your doctor or pharmacy.
This is usually imported into our country, and I assume our city, by cartels and other bigger drug trafficking operations?
Correct. That's what our federal partners are telling us, is that is being mainly imported into, it's being made in Mexico and then being brought up to the United States.
And then most of the charges relating to fentanyl trafficking, I just think from the press, are usually filed by the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Filed by another organization, correct, like DEA or
Okay.
one of the federal partners.
So I'm curious too, I've heard that the cartel is lacing marijuana now. Is that something that they're lacing it with to get the children more addicted?
I have not heard marijuana being laced with fentanyl. I don't know if any of my colleagues have heard.
Heroin? Okay. Thank you.
And I don't have anything else for my report on fentanyl unless you have any questions for me.
And so we're seeing a spike of fentanyl in Kansas City?
We are. We're seeing more fentanyl being brought into the city.
And have we some suspected groups that are bringing it in? Or, is there any kind of surveillance going on those groups?
That would be Colonel Mabin's shop.
I mean, that is one of our main focuses in the Special Investigations Division. So, I mean, we can talk further closed session. I don't want to go into sources or methods.
Right. Any other questions?
I guess I'm just, and it might be very difficult to answer, but the fentanyl, so are people usually, and it relates to the last question, but is this the sort of thing you find at a bar or a club, or are people usually with a deeper addiction issue just purchasing it off of each other because they're into activities that may truly actually kill themselves just that night, where I imagine others actually want to last a little longer? But where does it usually get obtained in some sort of way?
Usually if we respond to an overdose, an ambulance call an overdose, that's usually where we'll find out what they've taken. Sometimes we get some on car stops, just small user amounts from the Patrol Bureau side. And then Colonel Mabin's shop would be the one that would be getting the more bigger substantial amounts.
Now I'll briefly discuss case submissions to county prosecutors' offices. During the month of July, Kcpd submitted a total of 366 cases to county prosecutors' offices. Charges were filed in 128 cases during the month. 46 cases were charged in custody, and 82 warrants were issued. 65 cases were returned for additional work. 186 cases were declined during the month, and 109 of those cases were narcotics related. However, it should be noted that this number includes cases that were submitted during previous months, but returned during July.
I assume the lion's share of those were in Jackson County?
Yes, sir.
Would some of them have been referred to the drug court in Jackson County that they talked about?
Well, a portion of the cases probably were, but of the declinations, they were declined, citing prosecutor discretion, and along with the guidelines that we heard about last month.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
That's all right.
Because we might have the same question. So the prosecutors, the Jackson County prosecutors' policy is, I guess, in place, effective whenever she sent us the letter.
Yes, sir.
So they're now operating, and it's the standard that they will not file a drug charge unless there's, in their view, a nexus to violence or a persistent community concern.
Yes, sir.
So, just a second.
Yes.
What the prosecutors this morning told us is you can't send somebody to drug court if there's not a case, right?
Correct?
So if the prosecutor refuses to file a case, they can never go to drug court, right?
That's my understanding. So we are still operating, we're still submitting cases to all the counties. And then it's up to the prosecutor to have, file a case or with their discretion to decline a case.
Obviously, but we expect you to enforce the law the same in every county in this city.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
In the Jackson County portion of the city, you do have the coverage of the Kansas City Municipal Court and your municipal prosecutors. To the extent that you have those declinations, is that a final decision, or can you send it to Prosecutor Linda Miller's office and have drug charges filed there? There is a drug court there, among other things.
We don't have a municipal charge for, say, fentanyl or for cocaine or for
Interesting.
those other,
Would that be helpful?
would.
Easy to do. Okay, thank you.
There's an approximate 5% increase in the total number of cases presented to county prosecutors' offices during the month of July 2021 compared to July 2020. But there's a 19% decrease in the total number of cases charged by county prosecutors' offices in July 2021 compared to 2020. And that goes back to what we were just discussing. And unless you have any further questions, that's all I have to report on case clearances.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great report. So you covered everything under 6, which is homicides, bullet to skin.
Correct.
All right, community outreach.
Commissioner Tolbert. The community outreach piece is usually what the chief presents. And today we have a presentation from Cher Conger, who produces the 1041 program on YouTube.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So Kcpd 1041 is a weekly informational news show that we have started producing here at the department that gives the community an opportunity to learn more about the department behind the scenes. So a majority of our community won't really run into a lot of our specialized units. They may not see our K-9 out, they may never see our bomb and arson unit, but we felt it was important for them to be able to see how they work and why it's important for them to be part of our community and part of our department. So each show consists of 6 segments. The main part of the segment comes at the beginning and is a main story or one of our units or a program that we're involved in. I follow up with an in-studio interview with someone from that unit, and they'll be able to talk more, a little more in depth. I try to think of questions to ask that the audience watching may have. And then I go into what we are calling a crime report, and that crime report will break down numbers of how many calls patrol officers ran in a week. And then I've broken it down as well into different areas, how many homicides we worked in 1 week, how many car break-ins, stolen autos, and residential burglaries we had. The reason we came up with those categories is because I had spoken with our community interaction officers who said their community groups and their church groups were interested in those types of crimes because they're very personal to people. The prosecutors had mentioned before, when, if your car is stolen, that may be your only transportation. So they were interested in knowing how many of those crimes were happening in the city on a weekly basis. So I cover those numbers as well. I then go into a BOLO or be on a lookout report, which is someone who may have a felony warrant that the police department's looking for. Or I also cover what could be a traffic issue. If anybody's been down Main Street lately, it's a disaster. So I will remind people that Main Street's a mess and how to get around that mess. And then I remind people, by the way, you can also get a speeding ticket and your fine could be up to $500. So I kind of explain to people, stay away from this area, or hey, look for this person. Then I follow up also. Another segment is our, I'm sorry, where did I go? I do the BOLO report, and then I also do a spotlight where I thank or highlight someone in the community who has helped or assisted the police department in some way. And then the final segment is a Facebook follow-up where I find a good story on our Facebook page and kind of direct our audience to our Facebook page to either learn something new or check out something that we did on the department. So I put together a short 4-minute montage of, the show's been out for 15 weeks now. So a short montage of just some of the shows that we've already had to kind of show you the flow. It's about 4 minutes.
Thank you for tuning in to KCPD 1041, recorded at the KAA 359 studio at the Kansas City Regional Police Academy. Now, here is your host, Cher Condor.
Hello, and thank you for joining us this week on KCPD 1041.
Youth Academy is designed, it's 3 one-week programs to introduce kids to the police department.
This free one-week program.
Back in about 2006, we thought technology was getting to a point where it'd be useful.
That's when Captain Greg Williams attached a camera to a remote control helicopter.
We've been around since 1980. The unit started off small.
Since 1980, the KCPD Bomb and Arson Unit hasn't grown much, but has definitely evolved with the times. People have long since believed that complaints about the police department were handled by the police department. And in some communities, that might be true. But here in Kansas City, the Office of Community Complaints, or OCC, is the oversight agency. In studio with me now is Meryl Bennigan, Executive Director of the Office of Community Complaints. In studio with me now is social worker Lindsay Moran from our Metro Patrol Division. Thank you for joining us, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
In studio with me now is Tamara Basil, Supervisor for the 911 Call Center and Dispatch Center. In studio with me now is Sergeant Garen Carter, one of the organizers of the Youth Academy. In this week's Bolo Report, detectives are hoping you can help them locate this man, David Zavala. Zavala is wanted on both federal and Missouri warrants. And in this week's Crime Report, from June 28th through July 4th, KCPD officers responded to and are currently investigating 3 homicides, 124 car break-ins, 16 residential burglaries, and 47 stolen autos. Overall, KCPD officers responded to 6,409 calls and 1,792 reports were taken. This week's spotlight shines on our Citizen Police Academy alum, Joy Marie Chamberlain, and her church, Colonial Presbyterian. Their generous donation of toolboxes will house new DNA kits for officers who are trained to process crime scenes. Check out the Facebook post and watch the video on YouTube to learn more about how this amazing donation will help solve crimes in Kansas City. In this week's Facebook follow-up, East Patrol Division's Community Interaction Officer, Edwin Gordillo, visited with Dan Smith, owner of Elio's Coffee House. Check out the Facebook post to learn more about how this small coffee house is making a world of difference along Independence Avenue. Thank you so much for joining us this week on KCPD 1041. Until next week, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Make it a great day. So that was obviously a very shortened version of the actual show. The show actually runs about 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the main story of the day. As I said, we've had 15 so far. We average, it goes out on YouTube once a week, and then we push viewership through our social media. We've been averaging about 1,500 to 2,000 views per story, trying to think of creative ways to kind of up that number. Some interesting things. I did a story, and you saw it as our first one, of our police garage. That had more views than any other story we've done. People were really interested about how we maintain our vehicles. I couldn't tell you why, but apparently it's a big deal. That was also followed by our helicopter unit and our canine unit. So those are our top 3, I believe, views, and hiring. I did a whole segment on how KCPD hires and how the process would work for someone who would like to be a commissioned officer or non-commissioned, and that's gotten a lot of views recently. So if there's any questions or comments.
It sounds like a great program. Do you read the comments that come in? Are there a lot of comments on
I
like
try
the Facebook? And
I film the show, I tape the show, I write the whole show, so I don't have a lot of time, but I try to skim them at least once a month. And on Facebook, they're pretty positive, or people will actually say, and I've actually had number of officers reach out and say, I didn't know. That's interesting information to know because they didn't know as well. But citizens, I think, are benefiting from, if you want to know about our K-9 unit, you can just watch that segment on our K-9 unit. So.
I mean, it's a very, very interesting show, and I wish there was a way to get more publicity on it so that more of the greater Kansas City resident could plug into it, because information is power. It helps people to understand how we operate, and you know, and it puts a face with helping to understand the processes. Any other?
I will say this, though, and I saw this in running for office. If you have a consistent opportunity of the program like they're doing, you'd be surprised how many people you pick up just along the way who are getting updates or learning something, or, which is fascinating, I see this too, and you may see this, people who start off in a contrarian type of position and who just actually learn something. That's where I think the real promise here is, not necessarily folks who come in and love everything, but who say, I didn't even know they did that. Right. And so that's why I've enjoyed seeing it over time as well.
Thank you.
What would you consider to be a huge success in terms of viewership?
A huge success?
In terms of number of viewers, that sort of thing.
Well, I'd like to see everyone in the community watching at least once. If I had to guess, I'd say conservatively 20 to 50,000 viewers would be great per show.
Yeah.
But it's a slow in progress, and we are brainstorming ways to get more people to at least check it out, view it, good or bad. At least they've learned something new about our department.
I just see better ratings than Michael Mahoney has on Channel 9. Is the real way to do it, which only a little bit of work left. No. Sorry.
Thank you.
I would love to see this in our schools. Have you looked into putting it on like the school websites maybe where they could
I've
just
actually
view it?
talked to Dare, and I'm going to be talking to Dare about putting that in some of our public schools, yes, so they can learn more about policing.
That would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. All right, that is very informative, and hopefully we will also spread the word on the 1041 program. Department staffing, Deputy Chief Michael Hicks.
Commissioner, we have a couple more presentations.
Oh, all right.
We have Major Mark Folsom here, who's going to give a presentation about our Kcpd Explorers program. And we have 3 explorers here. I believe one will be speaking. Oh, we have 4. Wonderful. So I'll turn it over to Major Folsom.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
This is going to be fun to talk about, and I'm going to go through this as quick as I can. Although I could probably talk forever on it, I will not keep you. I know these meetings can get long. Our police department partnered with the Heart of America Council, which is the Boy Scouts of America's Learning for Life program. They do exploring. This is an opportunity for everyone to learn a little bit about the field that they may be interested in participating in as a career. This is the symbol for actually the law enforcement portion of the program. So we're here to give youth an opportunity to explore law enforcement and see if they want to make it a career. It's also a vehicle for community interaction and mentoring, gets us out there working with the real people all over the city. We're showcasing our department as an organization, a place that you might want to work at someday, and at the very least, one that you can look to with respect for what we do for the community. We also are looking to recruit youth from all over the city, all types of people, And you see the group that I have here today, we kind of touch the gamut. We're a very diverse group. We want to, at the very least, get them to join our police department either as law enforcement or non-sworn. There's a lot of jobs like dispatchers that they can do for that too. So to be in our post, you have to be between the ages of 14 to 20, all genders included. It's a co-ed program. You can be an explorer until you turn 21, and that's generally the age that you can become a police officer. You got to live in a school district that is within the borders of Kansas City, Missouri. That way we touch several parts of town, including Liberty and North Kansas City, Gladstone, Raytown, places like that. We won't cross the state line. We want people here in the Kansas City area. And we ask them to maintain their academics as we do the program. And so they have to prove to me after every semester that they've got a 2.0 average or greater. A little bit of quick history. Our first law enforcement explorer post started in 1971 with Chief Kelly. Other versions sprung up in the early 90s in Metro and East Patrol. Ultimately, all of these incarnations didn't last, and I couldn't tell you exactly how long they lasted, but we did get post 8600 from the original one. So nobody had used it since, so that goes back a long ways. So we started planning for this post in 2018. Chief Smith went to an IACP meeting in Philadelphia, and the department there, Philadelphia PD, provided explorers to assist different leaders from other cities. So Chief Smith was very impressed by them and the way that they wore nice uniforms and the program in general. He's very impressed with that. Then the Heart of America Council, not long after that, approached our police department about doing a program ourselves, having an explorer post, since we were one of the biggest police departments in the country that did not have one. So we had lots of planning meetings with the Heart of America Council. Colonel Oakman was instrumental in working with myself and Wayne Stewart to do all the logistical work to try and get us started. So we had all of our leaders complete Boy Scouts youth protection training. That's basically to protect the kids from any kind of abuse that someone would give them, including the leaders themselves. We want to make sure everybody knows too deep leadership, you're never alone with a youth. So we had our first actual Explorer meeting on 9/11 of 19, which we thought was appropriate that it was on 9/11. Our post is funded by Kcpd. We pay for the registration fees for the adult leaders, the overtime for all of our department members to participate and facilitate the program. We buy all the uniforms for the kids. So they get all of that stuff from us, and uniforms aren't cheap. The only thing we ask of the youth is that they provide the $45 registration fee. And then if they can't do that, then we'll help them with that. So we don't want people to not be able to be involved because of a monetary issue. Then we ask them, hey, get us a pair of black socks and a pair of black shoes or boots, and you're good to go. We've outfitted you the whole rest of the way. Our post is operated entirely by Kcpd. We have several volunteer officers who serve as leaders and mentors to the kids. We get input from them on the topics that interest them and that they want to learn about. And we do that every year at a meeting at the end of the year to plan for the following year. A leadership committee meets monthly, and we select the topics from what they wanted to do, and we organize those particular meetings, including determining locations and getting assistance from the officers so that they can do the presentations. We meet every other Thursday, year-round, from 1830 to 2000 hours. So every other Thursday we meet. Home base South Patrol, Majority of the time we're there, but we meet wherever the program takes us, which includes the Academy, Crime Lab, headquarters, et cetera. Okay, so this is the uniform that we chose with Chief Smith's approval because he wanted something sharp for these folks to wear. And they're all in uniform here today. I didn't know how many would make it, so I wanted to have a slide on it. But you can see that we chose something that looks kind of law enforcement, but is clearly not a police officer. So when they're out and about doing activities with us, people won't mistake them for officers. We designed our own badge and shoulder patch. We didn't want to go with an actual real badge, so we used a patch instead. That shoulder patch is one of the original patches that we had when the Post was one of the earlier incarnations. We designed our own t-shirt, and this is the first thing that I give them when they join, is they get a t-shirt. If they stay around and stay active for a couple months, then I will get them a uniform. We don't issue them uniforms until we know that they really want to do it. So the next 3 slides I'm going to skim over really quick, but these are a list of all the different things that we have done since we started on September of 2019, with a break in there when we couldn't meet because of COVID. You'll see that we've covered a lot of things, including, we had a meeting in this very room with Judge Bland from City Court, which was very informative, and I really enjoyed it from the aspect of, he talked about an officer's character and how important it was to be respected by the community and having your integrity. And we drove that point home. And these folks, they really, I think, learned a little bit from that. Recently, I'll talk about these more because I've got pictures. Much more exciting. So here's the group, just a few of the people. We have about 25 explorers, 15 of which probably show up all the time. And then some, they miss a meeting here or there, but that's about the size of our group. And this gives you an idea of the diversity, both in the picture and here. This was up at the Academy, you can see in the background. This is when we first got our uniforms. Of course, we were in the middle of COVID, so everybody wore their masks. And that's with the leaders, same picture, basically. We did hostage negotiations, and some of the kids really thought that was amazingly fun because they got to actually talk over the radio and speak like on the phone to an actor who played the bad guy. A lot of experience in our hostage negotiation unit. We also did Operation 100 stuff, which ties in with hostage negotiations. We got to see the command post bus, and got to see a really nice demonstration regarding drones. They're out there doing traffic control. We've had them out on the streets learning how to do it safely, and as you see, we've got them in their vests so that they're very visible, and we're out there with them. But they were able to do a very good job with traffic control. This is when we opened the Regional Law Enforcement Memorial up at Shoal Creek. These are some of the folks that were able to come, some of our explorers, and myself and Chief Smith in the picture. We've had K-9 a couple different times, and that's always a winner. They love that. But we haven't repeated a program, actually. We've had sometimes that the programs go 2 meetings back to back because we can't fit it all in. But we have not repeated a program yet. Helicopter unit, we got to go out there. Building searches. These are training weapons. These are not real guns that you see in the pictures. These are cast iron training guns that we have at the Academy. Non-functional, solid guns. This gives them an idea of how we search buildings. And here I didn't have the training guns, so we use fingers instead. Vehicle stops and radio procedures. They learn how to approach a vehicle. They learn how to put it out on the air to the dispatcher. They learn how to run parties over the air. and generally being safe with the different roles that you have as the contact and cover officer. We also do a lot of community service stuff, and one of the things that we did a couple different times was the USDA was giving food away during the pandemic, and we went and participated and handed out, well, on the last one, we handed out 1 million pounds of food. So the need is out there. Ride-alongs, they love these. We've only done one so far, and they're not the ride-alongs that the police department does, because we do those individual ride-alongs. The person has to be 18 to do that. So while we do have some people that are 18, a couple of them are up here right now, you know, some of them are younger, so they can't do that. So what we did was we got them in our police cars, 2 or 3 explorers to an explorer leader, and we told the dispatcher we'd be out there in that given zone, that we couldn't be dispatched on a call, and we would get there as soon as we could after the officers got there. So we picked and chose our calls and made sure we kept them safe, and they got to see a lot of really cool stuff. You might ask them about it after this. This young lady, she didn't believe that if we put her in a paddy wagon that she couldn't get out of the belt. Well, those are key locked, and so she found that out real quick. We did a drunk driving simulation, and this is a classic right here because they wear the drunk goggles that simulate impairment. And then we have them drive through a course firsthand without the goggles and second with the goggles, and you can see she'd been hitting some cones. So it really does drive home how important it is not to drive drunk. Oh, this is a good one. This is with the goggles on. We're doing field sobriety tests, and we're trying to get him to walk a straight line. Well, he can't even quite make it to the line. Firearm safety, we went up to the academy and we went to the range and they got to sit in a classroom with our firing instructors who taught them all about how to be safe. Then we did VirTra at the academy, which is a simulation, which some of you may have done. It's a shoot, don't shoot kind of thing. Amazing. You yell at the 3 video screens and try to get people to do what you want them to do, and it's controlled by whoever's the instructor that day. So you can see that they did that and really enjoyed it. And then we did some handcuffing. And now it's time for Abby. Abby is one of our explorers. She is 20 years old, and we're going to keep her as long as we can, and then we want her on our police department. So this is Abby. She's going to give you a little bit of an idea of what she thinks of the program, and then all of us can take whatever questions you have.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to talk to you. Like Major Folsom said, I'm Abby. I've been an explorer for about 9 months, and I started out at Lee Summit and transferred to Kansas City during the COVID pandemic. And the things that I've really seen from explorers is just a great opportunity for us to learn job skills that will help us in the academy. As you all are aware, there's just so much that you learn in the academy. If we can get the fundamentals down now and really see if we like this job, it's a good investment for the department to see if we can hire people and retain them after this program, after they graduate. Also, I would bet that every explorer has an officer that they know they can talk to if they have questions, if something's going on at home, if they need more clarification about something going on in their personal life. There's that mentoring aspect that is really important to us, to have that positive community involvement with the department and have like the face of the department becomes that officer for us. So that's really helpful. And then the last thing I wanted to say is just this is an opportunity for civic engagement, and I think our current society does a really good job of trying to keep us divided and try to remind us why we shouldn't be on the same team. But at the end of the day, we're all Americans and we're all here because we wanted to help somebody. That's why we all got into this job. And I think us kids are learning what it means when you put on the uniform and what it means to say you're part of this department and you live in the city and you want to help the city that you love so much. And I think this is a really amazing program because it helps us learn those at a time when some of us are just getting our license, some of us are still in high school, we need to graduate, and it's just a really important time for us to not become involved in crime and to instead learn the ways that we can help our families and our city stay safe. Also, a lot of us will go home, and I know our mom always asks, what did you do at the meeting? What did you learn? And it's a really good opportunity for us to spread the knowledge that we learned and answer some questions like, what is it like to call 911? What should I know if I'm gonna call? What should I do if I get pulled over? What do I need to know if I see somebody that I think I wanna call and get them checked on, if they might be struggling with mental illness, if they might be struggling with drugs? It's just another opportunity for the department to spread that information and educate the community on how you can be helpful to the police. And then also, I'm also a student at UMKC, so I just wanted to plug that the department is also involved with a mentorship program there. If you're an alumni of UMKC and you want to go back and mentor a student who's in the criminology department, that's an opportunity. And I know that it's for more than just KCPD, but we do have a lot of officers there. And my mentor has been phenomenal in helping me figure out how I'm going to apply and what that process is going to look like. And he's actually the reason that I became an explorer. So thank you to Captain Hernandez for that. And just all the ways that KCPD has helped me in my life. And I'm sure all the other explorers could say the same thing for them. Do you have any questions, commissioners, for me?
Well, thank you for what you're doing. I think this is wonderful, and what a wonderful positive image that you guys are putting out there. And you guys are our next leaders, so I'm really excited about this. Would love to talk to you guys, kind of find out more about, you know, what drew you into it, and how we can help spread the word to get more people out there. And, you know, like I said, what you're doing, really appreciate it. So
Thank you,
thanks
ma'am.
for
Thank you,
sharing.
Commissioner.
If you have any questions for them, go ahead, and then I have one more thing to say.
I might just ask, so you all get your moment on TV and maybe on an episode of 1041, if you all could just introduce yourselves, and if you're affiliated with an educational institution, go ahead and mention that.
Come up to the microphone.
Yep. Smile big so your parents can see you.
Hi, Kamathi. I go to Frontier STEM High School. I'm on my last senior year. Thank God. It's been a rough ride. And then Kansas City Police Department is my home, it's family. You can't even count on my hands how many officers I call godmom or godfather. That's just how important they are to me.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'm David Roberts, and I'm homeschooled, and that's basically all I got.
I am Creed Schimpf, and I'm also homeschooled.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last thing is we're having an open house that we're going to try and sign up some new members. This will be put out by our media unit several times, but this is just the cover page of our brochure that we're going to hand out. It's just a card, front and back. So Thursday, September 23rd, 6:30 p.m., East Patrol Community Room. And we would like to get a really good turnout of young folks who would like to learn more about our program and have fun.
Any other questions? I'm going to do something that we normally don't do. Take a 5-minute break, because I'd like to take some pictures with our explorers, if you all don't mind.
Go right ahead.
All right.
Thank you.
If they'll come up.
Thanks for setting that up.
I'm trying to stay away from that.
break. I needed that break.
Is there another variant?
City revenues should be okay, but, you lose some real earnings tax dollars.
Thank you for that presentation by the Explorers. A lot of great information. Our social workers are coming. Ms. Tori Coleman, we have a lot of great things going on through the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, and unfortunately, a lot of them are kept quiet. And so we are hoping that with these kind of presentations, the 1041, the Explorers program, and our social workers, that people will understand that the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department is very community-minded. Tori?
Hello, how are you guys doing today?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. As you said, my name is Tori Coleman. I am the Social Services Support Liaison. Every month we are trying to look at different patrol divisions and what our social services are doing in each patrol division. So today I have the wonderful opportunity to talk about East Patrol. In the course of a social services referral, there are often many parts and many entities involved in order to achieve even one part of one of our referrals. So this is a perfect example of that. East Patrol Social Services Specialist Matt Gilmay received a referral from a Metro Patrol Watch 1 officer. So even there, we're seeing that we're not just getting referrals from the patrol division, but if an officer takes a call in another patrol division, they feel comfortable enough to reach out to the social services, the appropriate social services, so we can get services. So this referral was from a call for service that involved a potential sleep-related infant death. The family had lost their 1-month-old child. The child had been sleeping in a car seat near the bed. Officers referred the family to Matt so that he could follow up with them during this difficult time. Matt worked with East Patrol officers to meet with the family and assess the situation. Though the family was working with others to get services during this time, they still had a need that was not being met. The family disclosed that they did not have adequate sleeping arrangements for themselves and the minors in their home. They needed 5 beds to have a safe sleeping environment. Matt worked with our social services from Shoal Creek, County Commissioner Scott Burnett, and Sleepyhead Beds to immediately get beds for this family. Not only did Matt secure beds, but as you can see from this picture, he delivered you. So it took a few entities to get the referral to get the beds, but also we have a department who rallies around these families, and sometimes it takes multiple of us to get this done. So as you can see, it's 5 beds with box springs. So it took Sergeant Painter and Matt to get a hold of the number 2 garage. They allowed East Patrol to use one of our flatbed trucks. It took Matt, both of the East Patrol CIOs, and a detention officer to get those onto the truck and secured. And from there, Matt and Officer Gordillo, CIO at East Patrol, were able to deliver those beds to that family. On one side, those are beds we were able to secure a need. But even more so, as you can see, it takes so many partners to fill one need, but now this family, who maybe wouldn't have had those partners, wouldn't have had those many entities to help them secure something like this, now have a connection to Matt. And throughout this difficult time, as they process their grieving and other issues come up, they now have a relationship with Matt so they can contact him and get that assistance when they need it. This mother now knows that she can come to him and he will get her help. I'd also like to take a brief moment to highlight something new happening for the social services program. There's an estimated 3,500 sleep-related infant deaths in America every year. In 2019, 91 of those were in Missouri. As someone who lost my nephew to a sleep-related infant death, I am passionate that we get that number down to 0. Unfortunately, through some hard work from our Metro Patrol Social Services, Lindsay Moran, we have started a partnership with Children's Mercy Hospital's I always say this wrong, Safe Sleep, Safe Babies program. Generally, this program works with home visiting programs, which is a structure that meets with families regularly throughout the life cycle of their children. But they have decided to partner with Kcpd Social Services so that we can get in there and we can connect people to pack and plays for qualifying families of expecting mothers or infants. And through this, we are able to get safe sleep environments for children and work towards lowering that number to 0. Thank you. Any questions?
No, ma'am, but thank you. As a father of an infant and seeing many who have challenges in this area, I appreciate the work here and the commentary as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Great report. Patrol divisions.
No.
Nope.
Hello, Commissioners. I have just a short PowerPoint to show you just of the different community events that we have participated in during this month as he gets the PowerPoint loaded. Also, the traffic summary and the crime information from June is in your book under tab F if you have any questions about that. So the first one, this is just another picture of the explorers when they were out there at the academy doing the, using the drunk driving glasses, and then also they threw stop sticks out. The DUI squad, Kcpd DUI squad was honored at the 2021 Law Enforcement Traffic Advisory Conference, or we refer to this group as LETSAC, for several recognitions. The first one was the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration People Saving People Award, which is a nationally recognized honor for our officers. Each officer received their own individual plaque. And the Missouri Department of Transportation Outstanding DUI Performance recognized each officer with individual lapel pins and a plaque. To receive this award, you've had to arrest 100 or more DUIs. And then LETSAC recognized Missouri Officer of the Year Award was awarded to Officer Doug Davidson. It's the highest award an individual officer can receive from LETSAC and from Missouri Department of Transportation. And then Missouri Department of Transportation also ranked each individual officer for their DUI stats. And in the state of Missouri, we ranked in the top 7, and our sergeant was ranked at number 28, and he was the only city municipal sergeant that was on their list. So we're very proud of him. And also this weekend on Saturday was Saturation Saturday with MAD, and he was the keynote speaker in that, and he did a phenomenal presentation. So I was very happy with that. The next event, just this last Saturday, this is the MLK Junior Square Park. It was a great ceremony. It's at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Woodland. Over 200 people were in attendance, including Patrick Mahomes and his wife. And as you know, his foundation has donated quite a bit of money for this park. So it's a beautiful park right there so that a lot of families and kids can enjoy it. And this is Officer Tyler Moss, Lieutenant Kehoe, along with Senator Barbara Ann Washington and Kiki Curls, went to East Patrol to present him with an award just for his dedication and his bravery. This was East Patrol's Family Fun Night. This is at Concourse Park over in the historic Northeast area. It was a really hot day, but it was greatly attended. We had a lot of bouncy houses, little children's tattoos, food was there. It was a lot of fun. The kids really got a lot of energy out. And this is Sergeant Ann Murphy, and she received the 2021 Thomas R. Myers Award at the Greater Kansas City Award Ceremony. She has done just a phenomenal job. She has started a nonprofit called RISE, Resilience, Influence, Support, and Education to help inner city youth. One of her soccer players that she had that she mentored for many, many years is an officer with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. So we look forward to her and everything that she's doing in the community, and hopefully more officers will come from her program. And this is a council resolution that recognized the KCPD social worker, Trina Miller, and several other members of Tri-County Mental Health for their work on suicide prevention. And this is a really sad story. This 2-year-old girl, her name, Queen, she was battling leukemia. They wanted to have a celebration of her life before she passed. She has passed away. Before she passed away, it was out there at South Patrol in a park, and she was there, and she was just the sweetest, most beautiful girl you could ever imagine. She rode in on a horse with her mom holding her, and then each of us out there gave her mom, who was holding her, flowers, and they had a big picnic and a big celebration, and the fire department was out there with us throwing footballs, and our TAC unit was out there just so that we could have that interaction and the community could come and interact with us and ask any questions, and it was really a great celebration. Really sad that she did pass away. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Great report. All right. And so you said the Patrol Division report is under tab F?
Correct. If you have any questions, I won't go over the crime rate information from June is in there, and then also our stats from our traffic summary.
Great, thank you. Department staffing, Deputy Chief Michael Hicks.
Good morning. You can find my staffing report under tab E. Right now, KCPD has a budgeted strength of 1,369 law enforcement members with 608 civilian members for a total of 2,206. Our actual numbers are quite different. As of July 31st, KCPD has law enforcement of 1,221 with civilian staff of 516 for a total of 1,742. The law enforcement number of 1,221 is 65 less than what we had at the same time last year. Subtracting for our August losses, we now are at 1,214 law enforcement members, 510 civilian members, with 1,729 total. We're still averaging 18 a month for law enforcement and non-sworns that are separating from the police department. In August, that number was only 13, so we were fortunate enough to, we were down 5 from July's 18. So with 1,214 law enforcement members, that's not really the capacity that we have. We have a different number that we're working on that I'll bring you in later meetings that are going to be a little bit more accurate, but the law enforcement capacity doesn't, that law enforcement number does not consider the fact that we also have members that are employees, but they're not working. They're on FMLA, or they're on injury leave, or they're in the military. And right now, our law enforcement capacity is at 1,168, because we have 46 members in different reasons for not being able to work. Right now, we're hoping to boost that law enforcement number by, we're starting our police academy on September 13th. We have potentially 40 members that will be going to the academy, or 40 candidates will be going to the academy, for a total of 60, because we're going to have outside members go to the academy as well. And that's my report, if you have any questions.
So the rate, you said increased from about 13 to 18 a month. Is part of that retirements, or?
Yeah, it's for all reasons of separation. It's retirement, resignations. August or July we had our normal 18 that are leaving. In August, we only had 13 leave. But the average for the year is still 18. And this is up from previous years. 2020, the average was 15. Actually, 2020, 2019, and 2018, the averages were all around 15. The thing that hurts it is the fact in those previous years, we were able to hire. And I believe in 2018, we hired like 101 or 111, I believe, law enforcement members. So it counteracts that, the members leaving. We haven't been able to do that up to this point, but now we are hiring law enforcement. And a little later, I'll talk about our BKCPD push. I'll talk about that later. But as far as our academy totals, we're really hoping we're going to get to that 40. Start September 13th.
Do you have candidates?
We do.
How many candidates do you really have? I mean,
Right now, we're at 36. We're processing more with the goal to get to 40.
And the maximum class is 40?
The maximum is 60, but we have other outside jurisdictions are going to be part of that class. Our other outside jurisdictions, they have been ecstatic at the fact we're starting back up our police academy.
Sounds like the mayor's trying to get us some money, so.
A question for you on that is, so we do have a pretty good pipeline on officers, assuming, let's say theoretically, we have more classes in the year. Are you confident that they'd be able to be filled?
Yes. In fact, we just had a testing date where 26 people showed up to test to be police officer, which is more than we've had in months. So whatever we're doing recruiting-wise, we are getting those numbers to come back. So it's being more positive as far as just getting them in the pipeline to get them started, to get them tested and through the hiring process.
You're to be commended.
and diverse also.
Yes, very. In fact, this academy class, or the group that's going to the next academy class is, I would say, is just as diverse as the class we were going to have back in 2020 that we had to cancel. Right now, there's 10 white males, and the rest are all from various different ethnic backgrounds, and female. We worked really hard to make that happen.
Good, keep it up.
So is the average just nationwide about 2 classes per year, or what's the average for most?
I don't know nationwide.
These departments our size kind of to be hiring.
Right, I don't know nationwide. I know typically KCPD tries to have 2 to 3 academy classes a year.
Okay, and how long are those classes? How long do they go for?
It's a 7-month academy, and then it's really, when we say we're gonna hire an officer, it's 10 months before they're actually on their own. Because we have 7 months, it's about 7.5 months of police academy, and then their field training time, where they're with another officer and they really don't count towards that watch. And then once they're off break-in, and then they're counted. And we always lose some in that process.
And then how long are they on probation when they get?
A year.
A year, okay. And so that's the period normally when you would lose them.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand you all had a trip to the community college, and they have a like an academy type course they offer. What were the outcomes of that tour?
It was a really good meeting. They have a great facility there, and they're actually building on. They're going to start building on out there. We do have at least one of our members who teaches out there at their academy. It was great. We think that's going to be a great line for recruiting additional people. It was a great meeting, and I actually took the Captain Marissa Barnes. She's in charge of employment, and she went out there with me, and we met with them, and we really liked it. Nice facility.
So is there any thought about, if they've gone through an academy, how we might be able to take them through an abbreviated academy since they've already graduated from an MCC academy?
We did talk about that at our executive command meeting. So it's a discussion that we'll continue to have.
Good. And so is it possible some of the graduates that have already gone through, we might be able to recruit them, which would get us a little bit quicker, turnaround if we could work something like that out?
Yeah.
All right, so just put that on the table. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. All right, so I guess we get into the boring part now, the business. Business items for approval. And that is under who?
It's under me.
All right.
Hi, I'm Doug Niemeyer. This is actually my first board meeting as a deputy chief. So I think I know most of you from either being the liaison with the city or the commander of East Patrol Division. So I'm in charge of now the Executive Services Bureau. All my items will be under tab B. We only have 4 items today to go over. The first item is budget transfers for the fiscal year 21-22. These transfers are for grant appropriations from the beginning of the year of the estimations to where they actually are today. The transfer is for a total of $329,602 for the grants, and they are all detailed in item number 1.
Move approval.
Second.
You've heard the motion. All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
Thank you. Item number 2 is our network firewall replacement. We're requesting the purchase of this for our computer system. I think last month at the board meeting, the auditor spoke last month to the board in regard to this issue, and the department should take action in protecting our IT network. Purchase would be for $220,368.80 to Converge One, and would be covered by asset forfeiture funding. I would request your approval to purchase the firewall replacement.
So let me ask, I noticed in that firewall, there was a $78,536 provided for help desk, but I wanted to make sure that that was over the life of the contract, or is that for 90 days, or are you aware of what that figure would be for?
That's, Commissioner, that's for the entire length of that contract.
For the entire length?
Yes.
Okay. My other question is, well, maybe I'm getting two things mixed up, because that doesn't have anything to do with the 26 departments that are part of ETAC,
No.
does it? Okay, that's a separate thing. All
Separate.
right, good. That was my only question on the firewall then.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? Ayes have it.
Item number 3 is regarding the MoWin Task Force. This is an adjustment for the subawards to our partners in the grant due to our retirements, attrition of detectives from the unit, and the total is for $7,603.74. This amount will be moved to the Platte County Sheriff's Office for funds allocated that were actually allocated for the Board of Police Commissioners or the Jackson County Sheriff's Department. We all work together as a group, but due to us losing detectives from retirement, we're taking those funds, moving it over to theirs to assist and pay for some of their detectives. So it's all one fund. We're just moving those funds to be reallocated. So I request your approval on that.
And the idea is that Kansas City residents are still receiving the same services as delivered by the sheriff's deputies in the relevant jurisdictions.
That's correct.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
And the final item that I have is item number 4 is for payments for Etac. That stands for Kansas City Emerging Threats Analysis Capability Systems. Actually, the Board of Police Commissioners is the fiduciary for this account for multiple agencies in our region. The total amount for all these subscriptions to services, the payment is $627,618.10. And I know, Commissioner, you asked about a question already, so
Yes.
You're probably going to ask how we come up with this.
Absolutely, because there are 26 departments, and I want to find out how you determine the percentage that each one would pay, who invoices them, and is everybody paid up? So it's 3 questions.
I'm gonna try to answer that to the best of my ability, and I may ask Deputy Chief True to help me, or Christine Ryder to help me as well. As you see in the book, there are multiple agencies, and they're in a tiered system of how we make payment. We're obviously in tier 1 because we're a bigger organization.
Right.
In fact, of that payment, our portion is 14%, 14.5%. And then it's divided out on the size of your department, how much you use these systems. So in order, obviously, to get better rates, you have more people involved, or more agencies involved, we get a better price. We actually, let's see, it's Chief Lehman from Lenexa is the president of the board of the Etac, and they send out the billing We collect that, then we make payment as one payment. That's how it works. I think I said that pretty close.
Answered all my questions.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
Opposed by no. And the last thing I have is a communications update. Our current staffing TO, as many of you know, is 106. We are currently at 99. We are down 9. On a positive note, we have 3 starting on September the 7th. So we do have 3 new folks coming. And I think, as Colonel Hicks said, we will be pushing hard with recruitment, not just about officers, but also in this area as well. So that's the updates I have. Unless you have any other questions, that's my report.
I mean, just say very briefly, I got to say a few nice things about Deputy Chief Wood when he came on in this position, just a few. Deputy Chief Niemeyer and I have a chance to work together over when I was a city councilman, and then certainly during the civil unrest last year. He did an outstanding job in East Patrol, and congratulations on the new position. I'm glad we still have a chance to work together here. So thanks for being here with us.
All right. Professional Development and Research Bureau?
Yes, sir. Deputy Chief Mike Wood. My information is under tab C. Real quickly, we have the 172nd is still going on at the Academy. It's an outside class of 11 folks. They graduate in December. For youth services, it's in your book, but I did want to highlight the first thing there. Powell had their back-to-school event. Over 300 kids received backpacks and school supplies, haircuts, physicals, and stuff to get ready for school, all through the Powell board. It was a really well-attended event, one of their big events of the year. If there are no other questions about the Powell unit and stuff, I will go over the consent agenda. There's several items there. The first one is the uniform personnel appearance regulations. We brought that up last month, and we just wanted to go, you guys asked that we went through and made sure it was gender neutral throughout, and we've done that, and we asked for approval of that one.
Just a couple questions. I was reading, and it mentions that during certain critical incidents that a member can replace their name with a badge that has their member serial number. And I kind of want to ask why, and just get a explanation of when that would be admissible and why.
It really is a fallout from the protests and the riots. As the officers stood there on post for several hours, the folks were able to find using their names, find their addresses and stuff. With the serial number, they can't do that, but they can still, if they make a complaint, we still know who that officer is.
And Deputy Chief, if I may jump in, as somebody who's had the fortune of people at my house or threats called to my house, I agree wholeheartedly with this policy change. You can still track folks down, you can still make your complaint, but you know, unfortunately, there's a set of folks that want to terrorize families and do all types of things, and so I think this change is a responsible balance on all that.
And it's still going to take commander approval. It's just not something that the officers can do at their discretion.
Right, but we had officers whose families were called while they were standing there defending our city.
And we had some officers' house where people showed up to their residence as well.
It needs to be done. Thank you.
Yes.
I move approval. I guess it's consent agenda, but.
No, it's, I think,
I'll move okay, so I'll move approval.
second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it. All right.
The next item is computer use and security. I'll answer any questions that I can. Otherwise, I would ask for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
Next is commendation and honor awards. Same thing. I ask for approval if there are no questions.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
The next one is number 4, Records Management System, RMS. Answer any questions, and if none, I will ask for
I have a
approval.
question about that one.
Okay.
I think it's I, but I'm not positive, where it says the purpose, there's a redundancy there. I think what you need to do is strike the first sentence of paragraph 2. The same thing, you just got something there twice.
Item I, Legacy RMS, is that what you're talking about? I'm not sure where you're at, Commissioner, I'm
I'll
sorry.
find it for you, tell you what page, and come back to me.
Okay.
I had one question in that area where it talks about suspect arrested and charged. Because we deal with innocent until proven guilty, should it be arrested and held? Or are they actually charged?
I think they have to be charged, because we hold people and let them go without, we PFI them and let them go pending further investigation. I think we want it to be charged. But I'll defer to Deputy Chief Hicks. He's a little more familiar with it.
I would argue charging is a legal term of art, and so it's a distinctive class of folks, so I would support the terminology remaining the same.
I think it's fine. I mean, we file charges.
Right.
Okay.
And then the prosecutor decides
As
whether to
to-
prosecute or not.
Got you.
Correct.
All right. Just wanted a clarification there.
Yep. I move approval.
I think they're gonna,
Oh, you have your question, I'm sorry.
I can't find what I'm,
Well, I would say it appears to be a minor change. If you want to approve it with the condition that we'll make that minor
take
change,
that
we can do
redundancy
that.
out. So, I second that motion.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
The next one is the Automatic External Defibrillation Program. Any questions, I'll answer those. If not, I would recommend approval or ask for approval.
I move approval.
second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
The next one is death investigations. I would ask for approval.
The only thing I would ask is add a chaplain. I noticed that in the death investigations, when they were going to the homes, there was nothing mentioned about adding a chaplain to go kind of help the process. So it's not necessarily investigation, but there was also a piece in there about informing the family of a death.
Can we lawfully require a chaplain?
Well, even if you don't require it, at least make it available if there's one available. You know, I've lost a 19-year-old son in a car accident, and it does help to have a buffer in situations like that. So I don't, in other words, we don't think about it if it doesn't show up somewhere in a policy.
So the idea being,
Yeah, even if you just say if possible,
okay.
to take a chaplain along to the informing of a loved one, of a parent.
Okay, we'll find a place where that fits and add it, but I do think it needs to be something along the lines, like you said, of when it's possible.
Right.
Or not inconvenience, not the right word, but because there's a lot of these, and it's going to be a big burden on the
I agree.
chaplains for us.
I
So,
agree.
but we will add that.
Yeah.
So I would ask for approval with that minor change.
Quick question, and it may never come up. I did a ride-along with the Los Angeles Police Department a few weeks back, and happened to be there for, there was a deceased body, no foul play suspected, but they had left, and the family said they were getting a funeral home to come, and they were trying to just instead bury grandma in the backyard. Oddest thing, and I guess they say that happens sometimes with people trying to save money. To avoid that, before officers leave the scene, it's the medical examiner that's arriving officially to.
It can be the medical examiner, but if you go on a call where everything appears natural
Right.
and investigations agrees with that, someone that's been terminal for a long time, and succumb to that. If you can get a hold of the physician for that person, they can tell you over the phone, tell the officer over the phone that they will sign the death certificate, and all that is just put in the report. And then the funeral home can come and take the deceased.
So we still have the official licensed person of some sort that
Yes.
sees the end. Thank you.
Yes.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
And my last item is we're going to ask that you rescind the peer support program policy. The FOP Lodge 99 is going to take that responsibility on, and they're ready to do that immediately. But we have to rescind this policy first.
I would really like to see an MOU from the FOP before we completely rescind that policy. Because I want to make sure that they would do it with the same care and the same kind of professionalism that it has been done. So I'm open to getting rid of it, but.
I guess the remedy is to hold for a month and see if you can work towards that, or is that?
We can do that. I will say that this is something that 99 is really adamant about, so it's not going to be an issue for them. I would just say they want this responsibility and really have wanted it from the get-go, so it won't be an issue. But we'll get that.
Thank you.
And I'll hold it till next month.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Office of Community, no, let's see. Oh, we've got private officer license appeal?
Yes, Commissioner.
Office of General Counsel, yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners. My items are behind tab G in your book. This appeal stems from a May 19th, 21 denial of this applicant's application for an armed security license. The license was denied for the reasons stated in the letter regarding previous employment. If there are any questions, if there aren't any questions, I'll leave this to you all for your consideration. The appeal of the denial of an armed license.
I think the denial was proper, and I think that the letter is not truthful. The statements that the person made in the letter are not, at least not consistent with what we got from the places where he was employed before. So that, to me, was an additional reason he wasn't truthful with us.
Second.
I was going to let other people discuss, but I'll make a motion if you want.
Yes, make the motion.
I move that we uphold the decision of the private officers.
And it's already been seconded. All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioners. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you. Office of Community Complaints? Thank you. Public comments. And as I call your name, you can come up to the podium, and please, the clock will give you 2 minutes. Please adhere to that clock. Ms. Cheryl Ferguson.
There is so much to say, but as you stated, there's so little time that you allow the public. I'm going to start off actually with my own personal story. Kathy's heard it before, and I just think that it merits somebody to hear and understand where we're coming from. In 2007, T-Mobile had a call center here. There was 420 agents. I was ranked 58th. At that time, they fired me for one phone call. We had a customer that basically was just like I have to deal with today, spoiled and felt entitled. And even though he had already used his discount, we guys remember when you could only get one discount every 2 years on a phone, right? He had already used his discount. He was not eligible for another new customer discount on his phone. So I was able to get him within $50 of what he wanted. And I told him no one else would be able to offer this because you are not eligible. I was able to get approval. If you want this, you need to take care of it now. He basically told me I was wrong to assume. I said, sir, why would I not assume? You called me telling me what you want, and I'm giving it to you as close as you're going to be able to get it. They felt that was rude. Maybe it was. That one call. Why am I bringing myself up? Because I want you guys to understand that when a company looks at the integrity of having a J.D. Powers award for their commitment to customer service, even if you're wrong, you're still going to be treated with respect. And I shouldn't have taken it personal. That one call. That one call. Brummett and Pritchard, how many did they have in 2019 that is costing the taxpayers money? How many? In addition to that, we also have the circumstance to where I listened to the Southtown Town Hall meeting. And in that meeting, I heard at the beginning someone from one of the neighborhood associations asking were any of the commissioners there present for the meeting, and of course there were not. When are you going to actually hear from the people? When are you actually going to want to listen to the people? Even for here, you have worked on mind manipulation of moving public comments to the very end so that you will lose the people that come here wanting to be heard. At the Southtown Council meeting, they actually announced if we have time for public comment, it'll come at the end. You have intentionally moved public comment here to come to the end so that you have half of the people that wanted to speak not able to stay the entire time. So how are you as commissioners making the determination whether or not this department is functioning properly when you're not even wanting to hear from the community? You're not making any effort to hear from the community. So why did I start off with bringing up the fact that I was ranked 58th, which means I was a pretty damn good agent? If your top cop is not getting rid of bad cops, there should not be any loyalty to try and protect his retirement. There should be loyalty to the city that you don't listen to, of protecting the tax dollars that you're spending on having officers that are bad cops. If your top cop won't fire your bad cops, it's time to get rid of your top cop.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. Joy Marie Chamberlain.
Good morning, all.
Morning.
I'm the star of the video.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm here to to introduce myself, Joy Marie Chamberlain. My ministry is Kansas City Police. With all due respect, I'm in full support of Kansas City Police. I'm loyal to Kansas City Police. I'm a Connecticut transplant. I did not come here asking to become a mouthpiece for KCPD, but I do so willingly, and I will do so with my last breath. I'm a member of the Citizen Police Alumni Association. I've gone through the Citizen Police Academy. I have ridden 72 times. For anyone who has not gone on a ride-along, I would encourage you to do so, because 30 minutes into it, it's a paradigm shift. Thank you for your support of KCPD. You will see me going forward at every one of these meetings to tell you, even if I don't speak, I will be sitting in the back, because the thin blue line has become my family. They matter to me, and I pray they matter to all of you. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. Indigenous, F. He's left. All right. Michael Deniers, or is that? I'm sorry? Yes, Daniels. Okay.
I approached this committee, police force, with civilians' right to travel, which the Supreme Court of this country says no state shall convert a liberty into a privilege, license it, and attach a fee. That's Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. And my thing is this. Through legalese, we are tricking the citizens to admit to a crime they are not committing. Also, a person driving an automobile cannot be stopped to see if he or she is licensed to drive unless there is reasonable suspicion the person has engaged in criminal conduct. That's Delaware versus Person. These are Supreme Court rulings. So if you want to have a safe city, you must be first abiding by the rights of the citizens. Now, what we have in here is officers stopping people illegally, according to Supreme Court rulings. This needs to be addressed, because this is not fair to the citizens. And if you want a safer city, you first must be safe yourself. So if you are breaking the rights of a citizen, and then there's no way that you can make this city safe, because you yourself is committing a crime, a fraud by driver's license. According to the law, a vehicle is operating in commerce. If I'm traveling in my private automobile, I am not driving. The officer does not have the policy or the law to stop me unless he know that I committed a crime. Also, traffic infractions are not a crime, and that's people versus battle. These are Supreme Court rulings. This is not something I'm making up. And if you're not aware of it, then I think the police department and the committee need to look deeper into these things. Because this is a matter that we need to address. We cannot move forward as a city or as individuals if we don't represent the truth. It has nothing to do with who you are, who is right, who is wrong. It's about the truth. And if you are not the truth, then there's no way you can get somebody to comply with you. You will always have problems. And this is what I need y'all to look into, because this is a serious offense that's being committed against the citizens of this country. Now, it takes time for us to look for our integrity, our dignity, and our honor, and do what is right. Not what we feel, not what is best for this or that, but what is right. What is actually lawful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. General discussion. Is there anything from Deputy Chief Michael Hicks?
I do. I wanted to talk about KCPD's recruitment drive. We began a recruitment drive called Kcpd. Our employment unit is employing several new tactics to help attract individuals to come be police officers and non-sworn. I had the opportunity to jump on Mondays with Councilwoman Melissa Robinson yesterday, and I got to speak with her 3rd District individuals about all the things that KCPD has from the non-sworn side and how you can come on KCPD as non-sworn and move towards sworn. One thing about our academy classes, we have, I believe, 8 individuals that are current KCPD employees that have done that very thing. They came on non-sworn, moved through from fleet operations, records, tech support, dispatcher, and I think we have a couple or 4 or 5 DFOs. They've moved through the organization to go to become law enforcement. So this recruitment drive, we're hoping, will not only boost our law enforcement numbers, but also our non-sworn, because we have lots of very important non-sworn positions from entry level all the way up through to the crime lab with scientists. We have fleet operations, mechanics, radio shop, dispatchers, detention officers that we're all ready to hire. And we're hoping that this recruitment drive is going to be successful. We're going to run it really strong for the next 45 days, Fox 4 News helped us out by doing a news story about a recruitment drive. So we're really looking to push and to get citizens involved to come and work for KCPD. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
And you all also had some conversations with Full Employment Council?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Good. All right. General discussion from Board of Police Commissioners, approval of open session minutes. Need approval of, can we do both of them, David, at the same time? Yes. Need approval for minutes for July 27, 2021 and August 3rd, 2021.
So moved.
Yeah. Second.
Been moving second. All in favor by a sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no. Thank you. Scheduled meetings are listed, and I think we have to go out of, do we have to go out of open session and then have a motion to go into close?
Do we have any public comment? Or, I'm sorry, board discussion?
I'm sorry, yes.
Just very briefly, I was unable to be here for the swearing in of Commissioner Kramer. Welcome. Our meetings are always fun like this, and we are appreciating the fact that you're willing to serve and appreciate the time that you're giving to the people of Kansas City. So thank you for being here.
I'd also like to welcome Commissioner Kramer. Now you can say, I think you can say now that we have full diversity on the board. We have gender, for sure. We have ethnicity, and we also have geographic. So I think we've got it all covered. Welcome aboard.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, honored to be here, and look forward to working with everybody and our police officers and citizens as well.
I move that we go into closed session to discuss closed session items pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute.
Second.
Roll call.
Lucas, aye.
Dean, aye.
Wagner, aye.
Talbert, aye.
Dawn, aye.
All right, thank you all. We will be going into close.